So, Kett asked me to do a blog on inspiration. Well, actually, she asked everybody to do a blog on inspiration, but I told her I'd do one, and I'm going to put it on my writing site, which has been woefully, woefully, woefully left alone, and I'm so sorry. I've gotten so busy that most of my creative writing has not made it from notebook to computer. And what has is often in response to something political, so it stays on my non-writing blog. That kind of leads me into what I want to talk about. She asked me to write this blog about, or I guess film this blog about inspiration and what inspires me to write. Someone once told me that you should only write about what you know, and I think that on the one hand that's true, but on the other hand I think that's severely limiting to say that because I've never killed someone I can't write a story about murder, or because I've never been involved in a mystery I can't write mystery stories, is completely wrong. I think the thing that's important is learning to channel what we do know into situations we may not have been in. Emotions, I'm super, super introspective, and I'm always picking apart my emotions and why do I feel this way and how actually do I feel and what's the best word for the way I feel. I tend to write a lot about political issues that really bother me. I am kind of super vocal about what I think politically. So I wrote about the Don't Ask, Don't Tell policy, which I'm super, super happy has had an injunction against it. And I tend to write about coming out. I tend to write about um, basically anything that I can connect with emotionally, because I feel like that helps me get emotion across to you, and really I want my writing to evoke something super, super strong in my reader. I almost always write in first person, and I spend a lot of time writing academically because I eventually want to be writing textbooks, and I know that sounds really, really boring, but hopefully if you've read any of my writing, hopefully, hopefully you think that it's possible to treat an academic subject with enough humor and wit that it becomes not this dry, boring academic subject, but like this living, breathing, personal narrative that ends up being super, super, super cool. I like to write responses to things. I like to write on demand. A lot of times people will ask me to write a story or a poem or something that they need for some kind of illustration for something, and I'm always more than happy to do that because it helps me flex my writing muscle and it makes me feel special when I get it right. And I've been considering writing not really memoirs, but more like fictionalized accounts of what I do on a daily basis, mainly because like the things that happen with the team that I coach and the sorts of situations we find ourselves in, the sorts of things we find ourselves talking about is always super, super interesting, at least to me. And hopefully I'm a good enough writer that it would be interesting to you too. I don't know why you're still watching my face talk. Maybe this blog will inspire you. I think it's funny that Kett's blog on inspiration made me, and I'm sure a couple of other people, inspired to do a blog. I I really like to write things that make me feel like there's some kind of justice in the world when I see a situation where it's just completely ridiculously unjust and there's massive violation of human rights going on, or there's massive violation of civil rights going on, or one of those types of situations where somebody's getting hurt in some way. I write in response to that a lot. Basically, writing, especially creative writing, is just another outlet for getting my voice heard and for arguing what I care about, which, in case you were wondering, tends to be somewhat liberal, but usually is concerned with making sure that everybody gets equal protection under the law and gets equal and fair treatment so they can live the freest, happiest lives ever. And I mean, sometimes I write in order to channel the emotions I'm feeling into a positive outlook, but for the most part, it's about hopefully giving a voice to the voiceless in a way that other people can understand. This is something that's ending up being really, really super important to me, and I'm still kind of trying to figure out how I do that and how I get myself out there, get myself heard. So, creative writing's an avenue I'm exploring, as well as academic writing, as well as coaching speech and debate, as well as mainly just trying to have as much interpersonal interaction as possible so that we can have all these discussions of what does it mean to be a good person in today's society, and what does it mean to treat everyone equally under the law, and what does it mean, like what does equal rights look like, and what do equal rights for all people look like, and do they look different uh, for certain people? Like, what about affirmative action? Is that actually equal rights, or is that unequal favoritism? And that's actually a debate I've had a couple of different times, and I will give you a mini if you can guess where I end up on that. Especially given that as a pseudo white woman in America, I'm the prime beneficiary of affirmative action laws. And I write a lot about misunderstandings, especially because I feel like when I initially say something, like my thought process has finished, and that's why I've decided to write about it, and I forget to go all the way back to where I started and explain how I got to wherever I'm at when I decide to finally post about it, and then people just freak out. And I'm like, no, guys, I'm not saying like you're wrong or you're bad, and I think you're fundamentally misunderstanding my argument, and I think that's probably my fault. So I'm still kind of learning how to communicate, and I'm purposely stretching this vlog on like super, super long so that Kett will feel like she's not the only one who makes really long vlogs. So if you haven't watched it all the way to this point, that's alright. But Ketty, darling, this is me also putting my sweatshirt on specifically for you, and me being gangster. And I love you, and you inspire me, and a whole bunch of other things inspire me, and I think I've talked about them plenty, and I'm not sure if this is coherent or not, and I'm super self-conscious now that I know you're watching for how many times I say but would you believe that I completely did not plan out anything I was going to say before I said this? And I think I look super creepy with my sweatshirt on and kind of somewhat like a witch.